I'll never forget after the riot on May 1st, a couple of years ago, when Chief Bratton stood up and on first instinct said, what I saw was wrong, people will be held accountable. I didn't get that from you. And I was very disappointed because I wanted you to say what I felt. And I think the people of Los Angeles want you to feel what they feel. When we saw those guys drinking while driving, when we saw those guys coming out of the strip club, being searched at the strip club on duty, apparently, when we saw that, well, aside from laughing at it, because it was almost comical, especially when the truck drove away and the guy was standing there talking to the reporter saying, where are you going? That was comedy, but it's not really funny. I was hoping you said what they did was wrong and they will be terminated. I didn't want to hear about a process because that's what the people, let me finish. That's what the ratepayers hear all the time, that there's this process we go through. No, they want to say, we're going to get rid of those bad apples, period. What I saw just on the face of the video was enough to terminate.
I would note that in any group of 10,000 folks in the city, there are probably some who don't abide by the rules. I certainly don't condone that. If, as alleged, the behavior did occur, those who violated the rules will be dealt with accordingly. We owe them due process. I think anyone in this chamber would recognize that if allegations are made, we have to investigate first, and then in accordance with the law, we will follow through. So the investigations are underway. We have a security department, second to none at the Department of Water and Power, led by a former officer of the LAPD, and it's in their hands right now. Once they have a full report, I'll look at that and make a recommendation as to what the remedies ought to be.
Will that become...
I've also asked the senior management team to make sure that there is not a systemic issue, so we're looking at broader issues across the entire department to make sure that this kind of behavior is not tolerated.
Will that become public?
Thank you, Mr.
The results of that investigation will become public?
Press your button again.
I just want to ask that final
I
question.
know, but we're already 2 minutes over before you.
No, but the answer to the question, will that become public, the results of that investigation?
And then Ms. Berry will be next.
Consistent with policy and labor policy, if we are allowed to make it public, we certainly will. As regards the behavior of certain individuals, I'll repeat my earlier comments. I certainly can't condone their behavior. They ought to be embarrassed, obviously. There are rules in place and procedures we have to follow. The first step is an investigation, which is underway. It's not an investigation only of those individuals, but it's an investigation to make sure our broader set of policies and practices are appropriate. Once that information is available, it will be presented to me and the other senior leadership at DWP, and penalties will be prescribed. We have labor arrangements in place which prescribe most of the penalties already, and we will make sure they are prosecuted to the fullest extent possible for the rules that are in place. If that information can be shared publicly, it will. Again, I don't know what the rules allow. If it is all possible, it should be. I don't know what the rules allow. Once we have something to announce, we will. I've asked that it be done as quickly as possible. I recognize that the credibility department is somewhat at stake in how it handles this. I would close on that particular topic and reminding people 10,000 people work there. Everyone I've met was working awful hard, and my guess is 99% of them are doing their job, doing it within the rules. There will be rule breakers in any institution. They have to be dealt with accordingly, and they will.
The Brian Darcy union business. The IBEW is very powerful. In fact, some people feel it's more powerful than any other union in our great city, and that most of the folks are connected with that. I personally have a great relationship with Brian Darcy. When he had an electric strike many years ago, I had him on my television show. We bonded, and we've stayed good friends ever since. How do you see yourself with labor relations and dealing with such a strong, powerful union?
Sure. I don't think it's any different than dealing with a strong, powerful city council. You know, you have to engage. You have to make sure that the information he needs to understand as the impact of decisions on his constituency, which are the employees. But I found him to be very collaborative. I found him to be very informed, and we need to make sure we are equally informed and collaborative. And these long-term policy decisions we're making, we have to help him understand how it impacts his labor force, and I'm sure he'll be collaborative and cooperative in those discussions.
Very good. Thank you.
Union. They're a very, very powerful union at DWP. How do you plan to have changes with the union and basically involve with 98% of the employees?
You know, it's a blessing and a curse. They do their job well, they're well trained. And I think to make this a discussion about labor misses what I think is the bigger picture. Transparency and engagement is something we need to address here. The longer term strategy and where we make our investments, again, is something policymakers can engage on, and we're going to have a dedicated and tireless workforce to hopefully execute those. But the bigger decisions to be made around DWP are how do we change our generation, which is old, tired, and need of replacement, whether it's renewable or otherwise. What do we do to make sure our transmission system and distribution system is reliable and second to none? How do we prepare for state legislation, which is on its way, whether we like it or not? How do we make sure that our aqueducts and our water is safe and reliable and our pipes don't burst? And all of those large investments are really, I think, where the policy needs to be engaged around, and I think labor will be there to support and execute whatever it is policymakers adapt. My reaction to the individual or the individual cited is the same as yours. It's abhorrent. It's not behavior I would tolerate. And were it my own business, that would have been dealt with already. I think it's important that as the general manager of the department, I do follow the rules and practices. I am not a dictator, benevolent or otherwise, of the Department of Water and Power. So justice will be served, but it has to be in accordance with the policies that are in place. I didn't write them. I don't condone the behavior. It's abhorrent. I'm embarrassed for the individuals. I'm embarrassed for the department. They'll be dealt with accordingly, but we do have to follow the rules. I didn't write them. We may change them, but we have to make sure we follow rules. And I think everyone is accorded in this city, in this country, due process. We have to make sure it's followed.